Douglas Edison is a semi-retired financial analyst, is making his first run for Haverhill City Council, and he's here with me right now and is going to tell us exactly why he's decided to do that this time around. Welcome to the program, Doug.
Thank you very much.
You know, and you've decided to run for City Council because fill in that blank.
I've been working in politics, as you know, in the city of Haverhill, behind the scenes for the last 10 years anyway. I've worked with Jim, I've worked with Andy, I've worked with Sven. And the thing I've found is, as I'm going around, is that a lot of people don't know how to participate in the government. So we need to make it easier for them to do it. I want to go to a ward-based council so that people will be able to run, people will be able to work. It's very hard to run for 64,000 people at large as a councilman when you're only going to make $12,000 a year or whatever you're going to make at it. Mm-hmm. So we need to make it easier for people to participate in government. So
does ward council participation, that number one, that changes the charter. Number two, does that increase the number of councilors on the city council right now?
Right now it doesn't have to. We could go to 7 ward and 2 at large. The 2 that run at large would be the president and vice president. I mean, there is a call, there's a thought to go from 9 to 11. And however it works, you know. But there are certain wards, you know, if I get elected, there'll be 3 from Ward 7.
Okay.
And that means that there are wards that are not being represented.
You say, for example, that you live in the Bradford area, correct?
Yep.
And you say that you'd like to get Mount Washington and Bradford talking to each other.
Yes.
What would they say?
Well, I think what they would say is, what are our common goals? I mean, the city has common goals. I was at East Parish meeting hall the other day, and we were talking about what their goals were. And each neighborhood has their own goals, but we have certain common goals.
Which are?
Which are education for our children, protection of our children. You know, how do we make it so that every child gets to be what they need to be? And how do we make sure that they do it in a safe manner? And you know, if you're going to where I live in Bradford, and we're in East Parish, then you're talking about that we don't really have adequate fire protection because we're at the far ends of the city. If you're talking about Mount Washington, then you're talking about we have schools that are really not up to the standards of what a school should be. And
you're talking about from educationally or structurally from a building standpoint?
Both. I mean, you know, let's say Constantino's has problems. I mean, Whittier has problems, and those detract from education. I'm in a strange sense that, like, I went to 11 different elementary schools when I was growing up, because my father worked on the space program, and so we were moving every 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so I saw different stages. I was in schools where there were 50 people in the classroom because the schools were so overcrowded, and you just became nothing in that school. You had to do it all your own. And I've also been in schools that were brilliantly run. The school in Merritt Island, Florida was 8th in the country, the 8th best school in the country, and it had everything.
Example, what were some of the other schools lacking that you found in that Florida school that you think could be implemented in Haverhill schools?
Well, in the Florida school, it was interesting because we had what was called phasings. So it was phase 1 through 5. So phase 1 would be special needs, phase 5 would be special abilities. Mm-hmm. So phase 1, you would have, you're taking care of the kids in a much smaller classroom, and, you know, similar to what we do with special needs students. And then phase 5, there would be, you know, people, you could take college classes. There was no boundary to what you could achieve if you wanted to. So I think both of those are very valid. And then phase 3 would be the normal student, and so they would get, you know, the normal education. But by doing that, you didn't have people that felt left behind so much as you do in a normal high school, I wouldn't think.
Okay, you happen to mention, Doug, as well, when you talk about, you're talking about, you say that you're running for city council and I'm quoting you, after seeing that residents of the Mount Washington neighborhood were not being totally represented, and they really have a great story to tell.
Yes.
What story is that?
Well, it's the story of America, basically. My mother did not speak English in first grade. She spoke French. And it's the story of the immigrant is the story of America. And so we have a lot of people that they're trying to work their way up, and they're working very hard, and they're very resilient in what they're doing. But we don't have a situation always where they don't understand how the government works. They don't understand what the programs are. They don't understand what's available to them to help them to succeed. So one of my goals is always to go up there and say, okay, guys, we can do this, we can do that. I mean, we now have the Make It program up there, which is great to help train workers. We need better public transportation because a lot of them don't have cars. But it's not lack of desire, it's lack of a direction. Say, okay, we can get you here if you wish to do that.
You know, what would be one of the first things you would look to do? Oftentimes they say a politician or a statesperson can't do too many things at one time on their plate during the course of the first year. So they have to limit that and concentrate on those things. If you were to pick 3 things that you'd like to see happen, that you're confident could happen, what would those be?
Well, the first is, again, the ward-based council. It's been 50 years since we've changed our charter, and our charter should be reflecting the city that we have. The second thing would be going to a more clear approach to finance, where everybody knows what's being spent. I mean, everybody wants something. Nobody wants to spend the money to do it. I was at East Parish, and they're interested. One of their primary, because of Fox Village, is the river and the pollution of the river. And they said, what can we do about it? And I said, well, what are you willing to spend? So we need to show people that we're spending money on this, and that. Are these the right things that we should be spending it on? And the third thing I would say is we have to understand, we have to have an actual goal of what we want our schools to achieve. We can't just say that this school is bad or this school is good. We have to say, okay, what is our goal? What are we wanting to accomplish? We need to have metrics that we can measure and say, we're getting from here to there. If we're going to spend if I'm going to spend an extra 10% on my property taxes in order to spend in schools, what are we going to achieve? And how can we measure it? And how can you show me that that's what we're doing? I mean, we had better test scores now, but we're still could do better. We can do better for our kids all the time. So let's try and do that.
So that's one aspect of measurable investment that you're talking about. If I could ask you this one, we've only got a minute left, and I'd like to ask you this question relative to goals are to secure a stable rent.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Are we talking about rent control, or what are we talking about?
I think what I would like to see is to go to longer-term rent contracts instead of going to a 1-year rent. Let's say we go to 3. Because one of the things I found out when I was working, one of the main concerns in Mount Washington area is being able to budget. And if your rent goes up every year and you don't know what it's going to be next year, you can't budget. So you can't say, okay, I'm going to go from here to there. I have a mortgage. I know exactly how much it's going to cost. So I can do everything around that.
That's true, but wouldn't there be escalator clauses in leases that would reflect increase in taxes, increase in water, wastewater rates, increase in insurance?
Yeah, I mean, there can be, but at least there would be, you would know that in advance. If you go to a 3-year system, then you would know that, okay, I know that my basic rent is going to be this, and I have a possibility of a 5% increase because of this, and that. And then you can budget, and then you can plan your lives, and then you know how much you can save for your kids' education.
Okay, thank you very much. Doug Edison, that'll have to be the last word. We wish you the best of luck in the November 5th election.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We hope that this program has been a point of reference for you. And until next time, my name is Frank Novak, and thanks very much for watching. And remember to vote on Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th.